so I can get my hair. Hi, I'm Gabrielle, or Gabrielle Cunningston, and today we're going to talk about Jesus, or also known as... Alright, I gotta shut this shit off. Today we're going to talk about Jesus, or, and what he did. Oh, this has the lights back on. Still kind of dark in here. Alright. Hi, I'm Gabrielle. We're going to talk about Jesus, or in my world, and what he did. So, Good Friday follows, all the days Holy Week leads up to what's known as Good Friday. Maundy Thursday, or Holy Thursday, talks about where Jesus had his final meal with his followers and his friends, and tells them that there's going to be some bad times coming up, but not to be frightened, because he foresees all of this, and that God, his Father, and him are going to have everything is going to work out for the good. He says that some folks are going to say they don't know him, like Peter is going to say that he doesn't know Jesus, and he does never seen him in his whole life. He says that Judas will sell him out, but Judas doesn't believe this. And all the other followers, and of course I was one of his followers too. My mother Zena wasn't really one, was one that was a friend, and Jesus was one of our friends too. So none of them believed it. Not John, not Simon, and not all the other followers. So that night or that morning, Jesus goes out to ask God, is there another way? Is there another way, another goal they can do so they can still give forever life and forgive everyone for all their sins? And God tells them that there's no other way. But sadly, this happens. And King Herod Tappy and his worship team decide that they've had enough, and they think Jesus is bad. So Judas happened to be bought out, and Herod and his men take Jesus away. And for a whole night they bitch at him, and they say, oh, he's wrong, you can't be the Son of God, how dare you go around making all these wonders and doing all this kind work and talking about God as if he's your father and you're his son. And Jesus said he was the Son of God, and that God was his father, and that all the good deeds that he has done and all the things he talked about are truly the work of God. Well, they don't believe this, and they think he should be killed. But this goes again. But keep in mind one of the laws that says thou should not slay. But then again, even though Herod might have oversight as a near burgermeister, he doesn't have the full oversight of as far as the earldom or the Irks go. The folk Irk leader is Pontius Pilate, and he's the one that can make to say if someone should be killed or not for their handicap for being seen guilty. So me and Zena we can't do nothing. None of the other followers or friends can't do nothing. And we watch as Jesus is sent to Pilate. And Pilate says, no, Jesus is not guilty of any wrongdoing to Rome. And Herod gets mad at this. And Herod comes back and says that Jesus goes back. Jesus goes back to Herod. And Herod gets pissed off and makes some more sins that he thinks that Pilate can have Jesus killed for. But Pilate sees it more as more of a Judas dealings. It's more of a worship business, and has nothing to do with Rome. And says that Jesus is not guilty of any wrongdoing, and he doesn't want to see Jesus again. And sends him back to Pilate. Sends him back to Herod. Well, Herod then gets mad at Jesus and comes up with some more shit. Sends Jesus back to Herod, back to Pilate again to say, look, he said this shit. And then Pilate asks Jesus, tell me what you told Herod. And Jesus told Pilate that he is the Son of God, and that his father is a king or a Kaiser over an overdom or a kingdom in heaven, and is a bigger overdom or kingdom than Rome and its Kaiser. Well, Pilate thinks that maybe Jesus isn't right in the head, and he doesn't really think that someone being right in the head you should kill someone for being not right in the head. But he does think that Jesus kind of showed him kind of shamed him a bit. So he says, just give Jesus some beating, and that's the end of it. But then Herod tells his overseer that maybe this would show some weakness. That if Pontius Pilate didn't have this man handicapped in some way, that maybe Tiberius might have picked the wrong man for the job. And maybe the lawmakers may have picked the wrong man for the job too. So Pilate then goes, he's in a bind, because he doesn't want to come off weak in the eyes of Kaiser Tiberius, and he doesn't want to show weak around the folks that he lorders over. So he says if Jesus is not guilty of any wrongdoing, then Jesus should be killed. Washes his hands. Well, of course, now he can be killed. And sadly, there's nothing we can do. We talk to Pontius Pilate. We tell him you shouldn't do this. He says he can't do anything. He's made his say on it. He made his guess on it, and he's done. And King Herod Toppy, is so happy because he believes that him and his Jewish team of worshippers, his lawmaking, he believes that as a near Burgermeister, well, he's done right. Sadly, Jesus is then first name called, then whipped many times, punched it, he smacked, slapped, hit, and struck many times, name called, stones thrown at him, made fun of every word it could be made fun of. Then after some more of slapping and smacking and punching and other beatdowns and other name calls, then they give him a board. But of course, he's too beaten down, he can't do it. My mother Zena has to carry the board up to where he'll be killed. Then Jesus is put on the board, and then he dies. Now, many of the other followers didn't believe this. Many of the other followers said, our friend, our teacher is dead, there's nothing we can do. Some of them believe that Jesus is going to come back in 2 days, and others just think, don't really believe it at all. So a lot of them don't know. Some of them, like Peter and Sullivan, they believe this. Others, like Thomas, go, he's dead. He was a friend, he was a teacher. He did a lot of good things, but they killed him, and he's not coming back. Well, this isn't true, because then on Easter Sunday, as Mary, Magdalene, and myself, and Zena, my mother, we come, and we see the stones gone, where he was buried in. And we say, where he's at? And Michael the Archangel said, he's not here now, he's arisen. He's alive again. And Jesus says, why are you looking for the living beyond the dead? And Mary, Magdalene, and myself, and my mother are very happy to see him. He goes to see the rest of them. Peter is happy to see Jesus again. So is Sullivan and all the other followers. Thomas at first doesn't know if it's Jesus. But when Jesus shows him the holes that the nails had to be put in, along with where they had to put the wood in and had to put the nails in and had to tie it up, where the holes were, he believes that. Now, we ask about Judas, what happened to him. Well, Judas was so sad and so sad and guilty of what he did to Jesus, he didn't think it was going to come down to that. He didn't think Jesus was going to be beaten and then killed. So he ended up killing himself, sadly. because he didn't think that was all that was going to happen. Um, and so that's how it goes. Now I know I'm missing out a lot of words here. I know I'm not saying it the way that all the holy books have it written down. And I know that you're like, oh, Gabrielle, your mother and you were friends with Jesus and that. Yeah, I can see some folks, But it is what it is. Why well, I take the time to tell the Jesus saga, the Jesus tale, that is told around this time on Good Friday. Now, before we end this film, some folks are going to say, why don't we eat meat on Good Friday? Well, all Christendom worship offshoots have different holidays where meat's not to be eaten. But the only time that all Christendom worship offshoots don't eat meat altogether is on Good Friday, because Jesus told them that if you were drinking wine on Good Friday, that would be drinking of his blood. And if you would be eating meat, that would be eating of his flesh, of his body. So out of onlook and love to God and Jesus, we don't do that on Good Friday. Now some folks are going to say, well, didn't you say other Christian worship offshoots? Yeah, there are a lot of them. But this is the one time where they all basically do the same thing. We're on the same stead, you could say. Most of the rest of the time, we got all these other holidays that we do, and some of them are more bigger than others, true. But at least on Good Fridays when we don't eat meat. But I hope you all like the Jesus saga, the Jesus tale. Me and my mother, Zena, were in that. Believe it or not, we were. That's it. I'm Gabrielle Coniston. Hope you like this film.